guys, it's Izzy here, and today's video is kind of an oddball for this time of the month, but I am going to be filming my wrap up today because I do have a special video planned for next week. Kind of special, I don't know. I'm going to be fully vaccinated by then, so that should be fun and a spoiler for next week's video. But I'm going to show you the books that I finished so far in April. Again, there is still a good chunk of the month left. So about 11 days, so there's still a lot of reading to be done. So this is just a brief little summary. If you guys would like to know what other books I finished this month, you can add me on Goodreads or follow me on Twitter or my Bookstagram. So the first book that I read this month was listed as contemporary, and that is Ask Again, Yes by Mary Beth Keane. So this is really a deep dive into mental health, and if mental health, like all kinds of disorders, trigger you, I don't recommend checking this book out. And just in general, I would say check out the trigger warnings before you pick up this book because there are plenty of them. So this book starts out in 1973. We have two families. Both men of the families are NYPD police officers. So they are just married, wanting to start a family. So New York, especially at this time, wasn't really a place to raise a family. So they move to the suburbs, and coincidentally, they get their houses right next to each other. So we have one character, I cannot remember her name, Lena. She's very lonely up there. All her family's in the city, and she tries to befriend Anne, who is the neighbor, but Anne doesn't want anything to do with her or anything, and Lena's like, I don't know what I did wrong. I've tried to get them gifts for their baby and all of that. So it just goes on, and it goes all the way up to like 2019. Following these families, there's a traumatic event that happens between the two of them in the like early 90s that really brings these paths are really connected in a way, but disconnected also, and just showing how all these people in a traumatic situation can deal with it, and just all the different coping mechanisms that people have and all of that. It's very interesting and a really deep dive, as I said, into the human mind and into mental health and all of that. And I think mental health is one of the biggest issues we have in the United States right now that I don't really see a lot being done for. So I think this would be a good book to pick up just to get a better understanding of mental health. So our next one was kind of unplanned, and I'm not counting it as a read because as you can see it doesn't have a barcode on the back, so I couldn't scan it on Goodreads. So what is this? So I finished this book on April 5th. April 6th was the next day of when I was supposed to start my next book. And I was like, April 6th, that's the day the movie 1917 takes place, but 104 years ago. So I actually bought a script of that movie the week before, and because I had seen excerpts just like on Tumblr and Instagram, and I was like, oh my gosh, that script writing looks absolutely beautiful. I didn't know a movie script was like that. I thought movie scripts were very bland, and this wasn't. I don't know if other movie scripts are or not, because this is the first that I've read, but this is the best original screenplay by Sam Mendes and Kirsty Wilson Carnes. So this is the screenplay for the movie 1917. I read it the day that the movie took place, but 104 years after, because I was not there in 1917. Sorry to disappoint. I read this in a day. Like the last few scenes I read with the soundtrack of the movie playing, because I feel like the soundtrack makes this movie all the more, it makes it so much more better. And this is still the best movie that I have ever seen, but adding that soundtrack in, it's amazing. And as I said, the writing in this was beautiful, and just some of the things like the river scene for me personally, that was the scene that I read online, and I was like, I have to buy a script. So there's that. So the next day I start nonfiction that also takes place in the start of the 20th century. This is more in the 1920s, so a few years after this. But that is The Lost City of Z by David Grant. I swear there was a Mandela effect and that his name used to be Graham. Or maybe I was just pronouncing it as Graham in all my videos because that's the name I'm more familiar with than Grant. I've never met anybody with the last name Grant. So this is a tale of deadly obsession in the Amazon. So we have Percy Fawcett, who is a legendary British explorer. He's even been a spy in Morocco for the British government. But he started out as a military man in what is present-day Sri Lanka. And he met like the love of his life there and all of that stuff. They moved back to England. World War I breaks out right here. That breaks out. He goes to war in the trenches and all of that. But his heart is wanting to be in South America. So I left out a part. He did do some trekking to see like the borders of Bolivia and Brazil before, and that's where his heart is. He wants to be there. He wants to discover the city of El Dorado, which was a common, like when the Americas were being discovered, that was a common European thing, that there is a city of gold in the middle of the rainforest and all of that. So that is still something that people today are still trying to find, like 500 years later, 600 years later. So that is, Percy Fawcett wants to find that, and it's just interesting getting to go deep dive into the jungle with him, because I didn't know much about the Amazon before this. I knew like the basic stuff you learn in school, and that is pretty much all that I knew. So this was a lot of learn about like the Native American, I don't know, are they called Native Americans when they're in South America? I'm not sure, because I know like in Canada they're called First Nations, here they're called Native Americans. So I'll just say the indigenous people of Brazil and Bolivia. I didn't know much about them, so it was interesting getting to learn. And these are a lot of times like first contact, so there were all these stigmas of what these people were like, but Percy Fawcett really didn't view them as savages. He hated the term and all of that. So seeing how different explorers interacted with these indigenous peoples of the lands that they were that they were exploring. So this book does show all that, but I did not give this book a 4 or 5 star. I got a 3 star, or maybe a 2.5. Because I just felt like it was all over the place and I couldn't really get into it. Maybe the movie is better. The movie actually does have a big cast and the trailer looked very interesting, so I think that may be better. And I think I'll just be following Percy Fawcett rather than the writer of this book. And then there was like one chapter about these people, I think the last name was Lynch, who were looking over for Percy Fawcett in like the 90s, and they got captured by natives and all of that, so that that happened. But I just felt like it was all over the place, and I wish it would have gone in like chronological order, but it didn't. So our last book is a graphic novel, and that is New X-Men by Grant Morrison. So this is the new X-Men in the 21st century. You have Wolverine, you have Jean Grey, Jean. Emma Frost, who I love Emma Frost now. And then all these other people, I do know their names, but I'm not going to list everybody. Just how they operate the school. They're like teachers at the school, Westchester something, Winchester maybe. And they're going against, this lady wants to kill all the mutants. They are mutants. And wants to destroy them, genocide. So the humans are the superior. And those are all of the books that I've read so far this month. I'm really liking The Silence of the Six right now. That's what I'm reading currently. I'm really enjoying it. Might get a 5 star. But so far, that's everything that I've read. Again, you can check out any of my social medias to get updates for books I will finish later on in this month. And I will have a reading vlog up next week. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. Bye, guys!